lead.
Okay, great. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I know we had about 37 people RSVP. We had a couple more since the other day, so I was just going to give it like one more minute here, if that's okay. I did put into the chat all the speakers, the 3 speakers that will be here today, so feel free to connect with them. And then also drop your LinkedIn in as well, so the group can connect. Me get ready here. All right. Okay. Well, we can get started and people can pop in. It is going to be recorded so we can share it at the end of the event as well. So, well, welcome everyone. We are very excited about our topic today. It's a very hot topic right now, I feel like, with a lot of consulting, fractional, just so the hourly consulting space is very popular. So we've got 3 panelists that are very experienced in this space. Chelle Johnson, CEO and founder of Best You Talent Advisors, and many more, which she'll share. Candice Miller, Fractional COO, and Miller Strategic Advisory Group. And then Christine Zapata, founder and CEO of Human Insights Consulting. So we are excited to have all of them here. We'll be talking about, obviously, all the hourly consulting models. Start with some of the definitions. We'll talk about client acquisitions, billing, pricing, setting boundaries, and much more. So as I said, if anybody else has joined since, drop your LinkedIn into the chat so everyone can connect with each other. That's another great perk of these events, is that you learn a lot, but then you also get to connect with many others. Then also throughout the event, please drop questions into the chat. I'll be monitoring it. So if it's relevant to what's being discussed, then we'll try to throw it in. If not, we'll save those to the end because we did give some time for some Q&A. So thanks again for joining us. I'm not sure if you're not familiar with Talent Collective, wanted to tell you a little bit about that. I'm Sarah Cook, by the way. I guess I should have started with that. I am part of Talent Collective and also own my own recruiting firm, but recently joined Talent Collective as their virtual events curator. So I will be in charge of planning, hosting future events, and working very closely with Krista on that. And so Talent Collective was started 2023, and they are just growing. And we are a women-founded and focused community for women in talent acquisition. And so we host virtual events like this one, fireside chats, the panel like today, workshops and webinars monthly. And then we also have mastermind groups, mentorship opportunities. Like myself, I'm involved in the mastermind for entrepreneurs. And so you get a monthly call and get to connect with people that are doing the same thing you are. So it's been very helpful. We also are continuing to grow across the US within a lot of the major cities for in-person events. So we just launched here in Boston, which I was excited to attend that event. So keep an eye out on the calendar and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on Talent Collective. So well, I'm going to pass it over to our panelists to introduce yourselves and go a little bit more into your backgrounds, and then we'll get started on our questions. Christine, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Christine Zapata, and I started Human Insights Consulting back in 2023. So coming up on 2 years, left corporate America after 25 years. And my focus is small to mid-sized businesses. And so I help them. A lot of them don't have any HR structure. So basically, I tailor my services to what my clients need. And I look forward to sharing some of my knowledge today.
Thank you. Chelle?
Hey everyone, I'm Chelle Johnson. I'm in Denver, Colorado. It's nice to have all of you on the session. I am the CEO, head of hiring, and executive coach for Best You Talent Advisors. That's a lot, I know, so let me explain it. I do 2 things. I'm a fractional talent officer. I've worked in verticals like women's healthcare, youth experiences, project management, and more. But I'm also a certified executive coach. So anything dealing with the sourcing, hiring, retention, and engagement of employees is what I do. I've been in the fractional space for about 4 years now and can't wait to jump on this topic with all of you.
Great. Candice?
Hi, I'm Candice Miller. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Sorry, I just had issues earlier. Candice Miller. I started my firm's Miller Strategic Advisory Group in 2021. We just celebrated 4 years last month, so that's pretty exciting. I also have 3 under 3, so my life is very fun and chaotic. But so my consulting firm, we focus on the business side of the law. We have focused on a few other professional services firms, but generally speaking, law firms, and kind of do 2 things. One of our verticals is fractional or interim and consulting work that generally focuses on revenue generation, business development, and strategy. Sometimes it does spill over into the infrastructure, just kind of depending on what's really needed. And then the other side of the house is we focus on business development coaching, and that can be, generally speaking, one-on-one. And then we also do facilitate trainings for all of the above that I mentioned.
Perfect. Great. Well, thanks. So let's just jump right in to our questions. We'll first start off with some to kind of go to each of you because you all have a different perspective and in a little bit different lines of businesses too. So we'll start with, tell us a little bit, well, I guess if you have anything more about your consulting practice and the kind of work you do, feel free to, does anybody want to expand on their services? Do you want to start there? I didn't know, you already kind of said a little bit, but if you'd like to go on a little bit more, Christine, if you want to share a little bit more.
Sure. I like to keep things short and then expand. So when I first started, it was through referrals and it was very project based, which was easier for me because at the time I didn't know how to price anything other than an hourly rate. And I basically do anything from strategic all the way down to tactical. Audits are really huge with my clients to see where compliance is lacking. So that created projects for me to complete. They were very much start, finish, here's your product. So moved into now more of the fractional space where I have clients who I'm doing ongoing HR support from everything that we identified during the audit all the way to a lot of employee relations and employee engagement. And I'm in Houston.
Oh yes.
Houston, Texas. Sorry. I'll tell you where I'm from.
Yes, thank you. Chelle?
So I left corporate in 2019. I used to lead talent for Comcast and before that Lockheed Martin. And I kind of felt like my soul was crushed after leaving corporate, and it was fourth quarter 2019, right before COVID started. So after a lot of fear and crying on my couch, I decided to have some faith in myself and I started doing resumes. And then I started just really leaning in to coaching. And throughout that time, I started a meetup group called Colorado Career Connectors. It became a nonprofit. We've helped over 6,000 people through bi-weekly webinars on everything, and from transition to assessments to LinkedIn to interviewing to mental fitness, etc. So that has been actually kind of a good pipeline from a coaching perspective. And then, as we all know, post-pandemic, recruiters were like one of the top 10 in 2022, and recruitment became like just booming. So I made 2 phone calls and I started consulting, and I have not looked back. So my company does both. All of my clients have been through referrals except for one, and I have leveraged different marketing techniques. If you are truly into being an entrepreneur, you have to be scrappy. you have to be everyone to everything all the time. And so I can't wait to kind of jump into that and learn from my peers. If I sound like I'm doing a lot, it's because I'm a multidimensional human and I'm a free spirit, and I can't just pick one ICP or ideal client profile because it doesn't fit my own profile. So I hope that helps. I need some linearity here, as you can tell. But I like to have fun, and I like to just bring levity, and joy where I can.
Perfect. Thank you. Candice?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of to drill in a little bit, so I feel that I'm a business strategist at heart, and on the law firm side, that really ties into revenue generation. The lawyers are not only doing the actual work specifically, they're also doing sales, right? And they're also doing client relations, and in a lot of other industries, that those are three distinct roles, right? And so there's a lot of support that goes into helping the lawyers also build out their teams from a business development standpoint. And as lawyers become more specialized and hone their craft, they oftentimes get scared with that, but they're able to then charge higher and higher rates the more specialized they become. And so that's really what I love to do. But sometimes when I start an engagement,
Okay.
there
So
are.
at my client's company, they speak English and Spanish. Uh-oh.
No. Let me.
Will that be good?
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, no worries. So on that note, sometimes they want to grow, they have very specific goals, but there's some other things that need to be organized within the house. So that's kind of where some of the other offerings that I mentioned earlier kind of tie in. And then I am part of several other communities groups, including Fractionals United. So if there's something very, very specialized, then I can kind of tap into the network, tap somebody in to help with a specific project, especially from the infrastructure side. And so once all of that's generally been done, then we can go back to focusing on the business development, the revenue generation, and growing some of their market shares or refining some of their services.
Great. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we're gonna jump right into, I feel like one of the most common questions, pricing, which can also be very uncomfortable at first, but can you tell us how you landed on an hourly model? Anybody want to jump in first, or Shelley, do you want to start us? I'll kind of switch the order up.
I'll start us off with this. So, like I mentioned, I made 2 phone calls and I started off at 85 an hour during my first consulting because it was getting my foot back in the door. And after that, I was able to double that. And so, in between there is from an hourly perspective where I've kind of stayed, and knowing your value, knowing what you're good at, being able to speak your value, and not underselling yourself. I think that's part of the mental fitness of this. And I did a lot of benchmarking. I just asked what people were paying. I dovetail in with lots of people like Christine to where HR consultants can do what they're great at, and I can be their recruitment consultant to build those talent operations, which is an idea for all y'all. That's been successful for me. So ask around, have the bravery and the courage to really focus on what the market is paying. But if you're a high level contributor with a lot of leadership, you can't be taking $60 an hour.
No, it's good. And I think that everybody, again, is afraid to ask, but it's good to me just especially if you have those trusted relationships with people like, that can be honest with you. So thank you. Christine?
So as I stated, when I first started, it was for a very large 401k audit project. And I remember, it was my, like I said, referral first job. I was very blessed. Started my business in December, got the work in January, and it was full time. And I remember my friends saying, don't undervalue yourself just to get don't just, you throw out there what you want to make. And so I threw out a higher rate of 150 and they took it. And I'm like, okay, this is great. And I worked for them for about 7 months, working through their audits. But and it was more comfortable, it was project based. Like I said, it had a start, it had an end. When I stopped working for that client, it was time to go out and start sending out proposals and start finding pricing. And I found that my price that I had been charging, I was not getting bites on. And so I took time to really figure out, how much do I want to make? You kind of back in those expenses, but it was 6 months of no clients, 6 months. And I told my husband at the time, I was like, if I can't get a new client in 6 months, something's wrong. And so I restructured. I looked at my rates again. I brought them down to what Shelley was saying at 85. And then when I talk to clients, I do customized work. I don't come in and say, here's your handbook, here's your audit, here's your safety program. It's what my clients need. And then I'm flexible on pricing. So keep the conversation open, because I had a feeling my pricing was scaring people. They were going, oh, there's no way. And I wasn't getting that follow-up conversation. And I've told my clients, here's my rate. It is negotiable, but if you're going to propose, $50 an hour, I'm going to tell you, thank you, but no. So that helped, especially starting out as a new consultant, being flexible in that rate, still being able to pay your bills, which is important. You've got to figure that out and be prepared for that. But it allowed me to land those first clients, which were smaller companies. It was affordable to them. And speaking my value, like what Shelley said, is what do I bring and what can I do to help you as a company as a whole, not just HR, but profitability and business structure. So.
Okay, great. Candice.
Sure. So like I mentioned before, most of my clients are in the legal space, so they're billing hourly rates as it is, so they understand it very well. The issue there is that if you come in at a rate very similar to what they're billing, attorneys do not like that. And so that's where I've kind of had to navigate different markets. So I did have different rate schedules. If I have a New York City-based client, Chicago, Miami now is a large hub for law firms. And then I usually have a very transparent conversation in the beginning in terms of what their budget is, what they're hoping to accomplish. And sometimes, if over a year they're trying to increase their revenue by a pretty substantial amount, then just kind of making sure they understand that utilizing me as an investment towards that, and they're going to regain that, whether it's in 6 months, a year, et cetera. So just I guess being really transparent up front. But I did use resources. The Fractionals United, they do publish a fractional rate schedule, if you remember, and that's pretty in depth. They have, I don't know, 4,000 plus members. Not everybody obviously takes the survey, but they have very good information out there. And there's some other HR platforms that you can tap into that have some consulting rates as well. But my initial, I really wanted to service the small law firms. But that became very apparent early on, is that they just really couldn't afford what I was charging. And at that point, I really didn't want to cut my rate substantially. So what I have been building, though, is more of like a templatized process for them in terms of, kind of a playbook to help where they could do some of it themselves. And that's something over the next year that I'm hoping to roll out to help that smaller client base. So.
Great. I feel like, Christine, you kind of talked about this in the next question, kind of from a different perspective. You had to lower your rates a little bit, but can anyone share a moment that you realized your time was worth more and that shifted the way you charged?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah,
so when I started really kind of tracking my time and understanding my worth, I then also adopted a remote versus in-person rate. What I was finding is that clients they're like, oh, just come to my office and let's have an hour meeting. But then what that does for your entire day is it's travel time, it's parking, especially if they're located in a downtown area, right? So when I implemented my remote versus in person, very quickly, they were like, oh, we could just do this on Zoom. So it was a little bit more of, an incentive base from that perspective. But I did do that. And then also I layered in additional travel components, right? So I'm in Buffalo, New York. If I have to go to Chicago or New York, and even if it's just for half days of meetings, that's an entire day, sometimes an overnight. So there are additional pieces that are layered on from that perspective.
Makes sense. Shelley?
Yeah, I have a story around this. I did a proposal. An employment attorney that I know through one of my networking groups recommended me to one of her clients, and we were in the contract phase, and I put a retainer out there, and it's a women-owned business, and she's like, your retainer was a bit high, but I really like you. I want to work with you. And I had to think about, how do we go into that, still state my value, but come to a mutually beneficial agreement that I got that business at a rate that they could afford. And then I negotiated in like a 3-month, if we kill it, if we've saved over X amount of dollars for you from agency, then we will relook at that. And we've been working with them for over 2 years now.
Cindy, I'm gonna just make sure you're muted, okay? There you go. Great, sorry about that.
So for me, again, it was 6 months of nothing, no business. I worked on my social media. Trust me, I was not sitting around watching TV. I was still busy doing a YouTube channel and TikTok. So I kind of take the same approach as what Shelley does, which is it's a 3-month engagement. Now this has changed. It's let's look for the first 3 months, and then we'll look at hours spent, projects completed, what's accomplished, any profitability increase, and then renegotiate. So I'm actually at the cusp of a few clients where I will be renegotiating rates because I did take a lower rate than what I had wanted. I mean, average HR consulting rates are between 100 and 300. And at an executive level, I do expect more. But when you're like, I need a client, I need that income, you tend to see that flexibility. But I do put parameters on that we're going to revisit after either 3 months, 6 months, especially for the ongoing clients where I'm there. I did not even think about an on-site versus virtual because I got caught in that. And you're absolutely right, Candice. There's the travel time and half your day is gone, and you can't service your other clients. So I've taken notes. I like that a lot. Good idea.
Yeah, and then one thing on that, Christine, I also then implemented last year a 24-hour cancellation policy. So if we have a meeting scheduled and they're canceling within that 24-hour range, then they're still getting charged, and that's in the contract. I know I've only had one client who questioned that. And in the contract, I mean, it's very transparent. If I cancel, I give them a credit at 1.5 times my rate. So it's not that it's just one-sided, right? And emergencies come up, right? And so obviously I don't always charge that, right? If somebody has a car accident or something crazy, but I think that kind of also helps the accountability factor there.
I agree. Let's see here. What are the biggest pros and cons of the hourly model? Candice, I feel like you have something you just want to say right away.
I was going to say there's so many, right? But one thing that I do, I do have a minimum spend. So for their contract to be active, we have to have a minimum spend, right? So it's if we're signing a contract for 10 hours a week or X amount per month, if they don't utilize it, I only roll over 10% of that. So I don't know if that's technically a strictly hourly model. But I think you also have to be very disciplined on your end in terms of tracking the time, documenting things like that. So I think that's maybe a downfall for the hourly model, just kind of depending on what type of work you're doing, right? It could be a little bit cumbersome from an administrative standpoint.
From a pro, my clients have really appreciated the transparency of pricing. And they know that they're paying for hours work, like Candice said, tracking and reporting is important, but it's also easier, like I was just talking about, to adjust that billing as changes come to the contract, or all of a sudden they want more strategic work instead of tactical. So it's easier to adjust. And then it's for short-term, unpredictable projects. The cons, though, your income fluctuates. You get paid for what you work. If you don't work, you don't get paid. And it can be stressful when you're not working. But I think sometimes hourly, they focus on that rate so much that not in the value. And that ties into what we all said at the beginning, is you've got to prove your value. So they're not writing that check and going, what did I get for this? So, there's a little more challenge to make sure that you're selling yourself at the rate you're charging.
Absolutely.
I think hourly is a really nice place to start. But if you read like $1 Million Consultant, and if I got the name of that book wrong, going more into a value model and retainer is much more how higher level fractionals are doing it. And hourly keeps you, I think, psychologically in that I only want to charge by the hour, and the repetitiveness and the just where it keeps you in a container does not allow you to grow from a mental fitness perspective of truly where your value is. And for me, it took me a couple of years to admit that I'm not just hourly. And this is from a coaching perspective and a recruitment perspective of what is the value that I'm bringing and what is the cost avoidance that I'm allowing them to have. And you have to think about the tangibles and the intangibles. So to me, there are more cons to staying hourly than pros.
Well, that's a good transition into like the next question is, you kind of all covered it a little bit, the fractional piece. And I mean, have you ever transitioned a client from hourly to a different model or vice versa? And why, what influenced that?
I will be. Haven't done it yet, but I can see a client that, again, I get in the door to do an audit, and like what Chelle was saying is, if you don't hire me and you don't do these, here's your liability and what the money you could lose. And that has been growing for some of my clients into ongoing, long-term, no end, employee relations support, things that they're going to need in the long run. So I will be transitioning. And I think I know to sell that is they're going to be able to budget something consistent between now and the end of the year. When it's budget time, they're going to know what that expense is. And then putting in the contract, every whatever the time frame is, a 5% increase. So going retainer from hourly allows the client to have more consistency in their expenses. So I will be doing that. After my 6-month engagement is up with them, I will be transitioning them to a retainer.
Yes. That's great.
Yeah, and I did that once early on. It was hourly. The scope really changed for what they needed because I had the data in terms of tracking. They wanted to renegotiate the SOW, add more responsibility in, et cetera. And so at that point, when I had then presented to them, that's fine, here's what you're looking at. They didn't quite have that in their budget. So we kind of figured out what would fit in their budget. I went to a retainer model, and then we found some additional solutions to kind of plug in and help them from that perspective.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, I wanted to kind of shift gears and kind of, we can start with Candice. And we have a few questions. I know that one area that you're meticulous about is time tracking. And especially working with many law firms, like you said, like they're billing hourly. So what systems or tools do you swear by, and how do you avoid micromanaging yourself or clients?
Sure. So I've used quite a few QuickBooks Time. I've used Time Doctor. Right now I'm using Clockify. I like that because it integrates directly with Outlook. So everything gets calendared. I do track everything. It's all color coded in my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, I will not show up. And I fully disclose that to everybody. Those tools are really helpful. I don't quite do the lawyer model, so I'm not breaking down an hour into point one, so 6 intervals. That's just too time consuming with a software like Clockify. Really utilizing more of a time blocking methodology. And kind of sitting down, task-based, et cetera. So Clockify is the one I'm using now. I did send over a slide we could, and I could potentially my screen. And I could kind of show, let me just get it, share for the correct one. Here we go. So let me just move this stuff all out the way. Can everybody see this? So this is kind of example of what my calendar looks like. It's a little crazy. But that way when I go into Clockify, I can pull it over. And they have really nice dashboarding. You do have to build out the tasks, the clients, but basically this is what it looks like. And I track everything from a lunch, whether it's prospecting, a network, a potential referral source. And that way that's kind of really helped me to understand my pricing model as well, and how the client life cycle, how long it is in terms of landing somebody. And this is just another example of some of the tasks that you can break down. It does all of the hourly rate calculation, and you can plug it into some of the invoicing systems as well. You can do then client and task totals. So that's really nice. You can do monthly, weekly, year to date for the length of the entire project. And then there's nice dashboards here, which kind of ranks. I did have to redact a lot of stuff. So after I did that, I was like, oh, this is not that great to look at. But it can then show you, where you're spending most of your time. You'll see in the green. So I'm on several boards. I track all of that volunteer time as well. Just so that I can understand, where I'm focusing, and what that kind of looks like. And then I did include this. So one of our questions was kind of talking about the Eisenhower or, time tracking, et cetera. And I really do use this methodology with my calendar to just kind of make sure that I'm efficient from that standpoint. So hopefully that was helpful to any of the attendees. And I'm also available offline to kind of talk through any specifics, because obviously this has been 4 years of creating it through trial and error, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing those. How do you balance tracking every minute with the trust needed in a long-term client relationship?
Sure. I mean, I don't really track down to the minute any longer, but if I'm billing them for an hour, in my description field, I will put in, whether it's follow-up emails, what specific projects that I'm working on and what those tasks are. That's all layered into my SOW with them. So at the beginning of an engagement, that's really what we map out. What do you want tracked? What do you want these reports to look like? And in Clockify, you can export a very detailed Excel spreadsheet. So that goes along with every invoice that I send to them, in case they really want to kind of look at the nitty gritty, which they generally don't. So, but for myself, I then also quantify my own value and how much time we've spent on certain projects. We kind of also identify some inefficiencies as well for them.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Christine, you want to we'll kind of dig into some like pitching and negotiating a little bit. What advice do you give other women who struggle with naming a number or raising their rates?
Kind of at the beginning, don't undervalue yourself. Don't we being women, we tend to get worried we're going to hurt people's feelings. And if we put the wrong number out, we're not going to get the job. And so, don't undervalue yourself, but also be willing and open to determine your range and then negotiate within that range, but stick within your range. And, like I said, average consultants 100 to 300. I'd love to get to that 300 point. I'm not there yet, but I know my value. And it's also like what Candice said, is talking to the clients about what projects did you work on, and then did you raise profitability because you reduced turnover? And those numbers are out there. AI is your friend to do research to say, I've reduced turnover by X and turnover costs you Y. So let's look at the savings there. And that is also to help negotiating that increase, and to not be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's either a yes or a no, or it's a yes, but can you adjust? If it's a no, you can't beat yourself up of, did I charge too much? Know your worth, create your value, look at expenses. Expenses for a business can be anywhere between 30 to 50%, but that does reduce your taxable income. So you also have to look at business structure to know exactly, what pricing you need. But it is talking to your client about what you've done to either increase profitability, save them money. I mean, my first client, within the first month, I saved them $200,000, and I said, there you go. You just paid for me for the next 6 months. So that's helpful as well. And, as a new consultant, it is pretty common to have a lower rate and then negotiating for those higher rates after a certain amount of time, and maybe even setting that time. Is it after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year? And that's going to depend on your client, but stick to that schedule and make sure that that's in your contract, so they are aware that you're going to be asking for a rate increase after a specific amount of time.
Okay, perfect. You may have been the one to mention this. I apologize, but I think negotiating as you're advocating for someone else, how has that reframed your approach?
It's always easier to negotiate for someone else because you don't take things as personal. And, we tend to not want to hurt feelings and take things personally. And it really isn't about you. It's not about me. It's what they feel is their budget, what they want to get accomplished, and whether it's a connection or not. So it helped me realize, again, know my worth and feel comfortable expressing that and negotiating for myself. And it's challenging, but what helps is come with data. Just like if you're training for a seminar, practice, get your data straight, know what you're talking about, so that you don't come across as I don't know, I can't tell, it's indecisive. Be very decisive. Know what you're going to ask for, and then don't take it personally. You can't. It's a numbers game when you're a consultant. It is, you send out 100 proposals and hope you get back, 2. So you can't take the rejections personally, but you do want to look at, again, how are you approaching? What does your business development and sales look like? And so while you're negotiating and advocating for yourself, you're also making sure that you are, you're also priced competitively, so you feel comfortable in those conversations.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. All right, Shelley. When it comes to setting boundaries with clients, what's one boundary that's non-negotiable for you?
First of all, I just want to really kind of pull the string on what Christine was saying. And with your audience, if any of you are new into even thinking about this, first of all, congratulations for being here. It takes a lot of courage to start on your own. And those things that Christine and Candice are talking about are, how do you advocate for yourself? You got to know what your values are, and you have to intertwine those values into your contracts. And a lot of us as women, we don't ask for what we're worth. So part of how I do that is like, would a guy ask for it? And I've put myself in situations where I am the only woman business owner, and I'm listening to how the guys speak, what they're doing, how business is brought up, and I'm adjusting for that. And the question, would a guy ask for that? Well, hell yeah, I would. Why not me? And so part of that is your risk aversion or ability to lean into risk. So a lot of it, what I'm talking about, is actually knowing yourself well enough. Okay, so a non-negotiable for me is, because I know my values, is with my clients, I put in like a matrix of what you can expect from me and what I need to expect from you. And a non-negotiable for me is communication. Um, if I send over a candidate and I don't hear from you, how is that your value proposition? We need to have weekly check-ins. Our relationship is the most important part of this. So if you're paying me either hourly or on a retainer and you're ghosting me internally, what does that say about you to the candidates and from a candidate care perspective? So even in my contract, I have kind of what the SLAs will look like of, here are my values, here's my value proposition, here's what you can expect from me, and here's what I need from you. And it's a constant education to the client of how we can best work together. And if that ever comes to a point of, hey, I'm not receiving this, then you have to have that conversation as a business owner. So that's a non-negotiable for me.
Mhm. Okay, well then going into that, then how do you handle the clients who don't respect the time-based nature of your work?
If you guys can't tell, I don't just do it by time. I'm doing it much more on a value and on retainer model now. There have definitely been those that don't. Like, I will provide everything they ask for because as a pleaser and a hyperachiever, I want to make sure my client is happy. And then I don't hear from the CEO for a week. And then I have to be like, okay, what's the best way to handle this? And um, really, it's about, what is a non-response costing you? How are you doing? So some of that coaching comes into that. And we always come back to our values and the relationship and the trust. Because if you break that trust, the whole relationship needs to be started over. I mean, think about that. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. Well, it looks like we've got like about 15 minutes left. We've got just do a couple wrap-up questions, so then we can hopefully get some questions from the anyone that's attending. For all of the panelists, what's one mindset shift that helped you own your time and worth? And you
I
probably kind of covered it, but try to like summarize it maybe. I'm sure we've said it multiple times. It's a common theme
I
here.
remember distinctively, I had actually gotten laid off from Stanley Black & Decker. I wanted to stay there forever. I wanted to retire from that company. They sold my division, so I was a little beat up. And I had a CEO hire me on as a CHRO within a month. And it was it was a huge ego boost. And that was fall of 2022. And New Year's, I made the decision that I come first. I absolutely come first. And, that's above spouse, children. You have to put yourself first so that you can help others. And from that point on, I kind of raised my vibrational level, turned it into just a positive life. And and it allowed me, again, to feel comfortable talking to absolute strangers about what they need and develop throughout the last 2 years the consulting business that I have today. But it was such an aha moment for me. So it was New Year's 2022. And then a year later, I finally pulled the trigger and said, I'm going to do my own thing. So.
Perfect. Candice, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, being a mom, that really was my largest mindset shift in terms of, if I'm spending any time away from my family, I need to get paid for that. And I need to get paid what I feel my value is by not being present with my kids, right? And obviously I don't have to preach to the choir in terms of childcare costs are just absolutely astronomical. So there's a bottom line number that I have to meet, right? And so I think that really has put things into perspective for me, more than anything, is just understanding that.
Perfect. Shelley?
For me, it's pretty simple. And this is not from a religious standpoint at all. It's faith in myself, faith in where I believe the universe and that higher vibration is allowing me to be my best over that fear that has stopped me and so many people that I talk with. So I kind of think about it as I'm not going to pitch a tent in crap that my mind comes up with. I'm going to move forward, throw things out there, see how they stick, and take a risk on me because I have faith in me.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we'll leave some time here for any questions. Does anybody have anything that you can raise your hand if you'd like, or because I didn't know, no one put anything in the chat, but does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask the group? Let's see. AI is on.
No questions on my end, but Krista put in the chat that another time tracking tool that's good is Toggle. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. So I just want to make sure the group kind of got that information.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Daphne did. Daphne has a question. How are you working oops, see here. My thing is, how are you? Oh, AI is helping, is allowing, to, is a big topic in this, right now. And so how is AI, helping you? And then how are you working that model into your hourly rate?
I have a client that flat out told me, and I know it's not going to take you that much time because you use AI. He is a big, and that's part of his business structures. He's launching an AI team. And so I was like, oh, and the first month of this year that I build all my clients, I'm like, man, had I not had AI, I'd have been able to bill more hours. So you have to build that in because Daphne, you're right. AI, you can get a handbook written and then customized pretty quickly as long as you have client participation. But it's difficult to get some of the hours in because AI is making it so easy for you. So I don't always share that I use AI with my clients. I know I've got that one. He goes, I know you're using AI. So for sure.
I mean, from my perspective, the law firms are very behind in the AI arena, if you will. And I guess, so for every client that I work with, I get a laptop and I have to log into their infrastructure. And so it really depends on the tools that they have available. Some firms have, complete policies against any type of AI tool. So yeah, that's a little bit of a struggle. Do I use Copilot myself? Social media, things like that. Absolutely. And I think it allows you to do things a little bit faster. I did use it for helping doing some PowerPoints. It's not great with like Excel and PowerPoint, not also great with, but in terms of like getting things done faster, but some of those things, I am looking to probably streamline those into like flat fee structure. And I think that that's probably the smarter thing to do, because you can get it done faster.
Perfect. What are the typical payment terms? 7, 14, 30 days you typically set, and how often do you bill or send invoice?
I do monthly billing with 15-day terms. And some companies will have their own terms, and so some are on 30, but most of the ones that I set on and are in my contracts are 15 days.
I do upon receipt, and generally they'll pay within 2 weeks for mailing time. Outside of that, I mean, I do charge interest after 30 days. I'm pretty strict on that. I mean, they're attorneys, so they know contracts, so there's generally not a problem with that.
Okay. For the times that you've changed from, let's see, this is Jen's question, from a non-hourly flat rate retained setup, how do you decide on the amount, and do you track it back to an hourly rate?
I'll take this one. This is a mindset shift. It's a value and worth shift. I do not track it back to hourly because that's going back to, am I truly a consultant or am I an hourly worker? The threshold for moving is when you feel you're ready. When you feel, I mean, I don't, you can tell I'm probably the opposite of Candice. I'm a little bit more non-linear. And for me, it was, when did I feel ready? And when did I feel like I could really communicate that value?
Yeah, and I think to add to that, when I've done strategy work and when it's very specifically focused on growth, then it's based on a bottom line number. And then it has nothing to do with an hourly rate, right? So those are going to be very specific contracts that if we increase revenue by X%, which is what our strategy is ultimately going to be. And as long as we're taking the steps to do that, then it's going to be X amount, right? And so what Shelley said, I mean, it's really tied back to value at that point.
Perfect. Great. Last question of the day. What boundaries have you set that improved your work-life balance?
I have specific hours of operation that allows me to work out in the mornings. I block out my calendar. Nobody can get on my calendar before 9:30. I'm done at 4. Fridays I'm done at noon. And I'm also doing laundry while I'm on Zoom meetings. And it's I love the work-life balance. I have more of it. The only frustrating part is my husband's like, when are your days off? And I was like, I don't have them, but I'm not working 10-hour days like I was in corporate America. So I work weekends until I'm done working for the weekend. You get to kind of choose that, but it's I have more work-life balance as an independent consultant now.
Yeah. I time block for working out or doing some type of movement every day. I also take every other Monday off because my husband does. I still might be working on a Sunday afternoon to kind of get a contract done or follow up on group coaching or whatever. But you choose, like I just went to Mexico for 2 weeks. I worked from 9 to 2 and then I went to the beach all day, right, with my daughter. So it really is about you figuring out what is okay for you and then communicating that, and setting that precedent with your clients.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, thank you again all for coming today, and our panelists. I appreciate you taking the time and preparing for this. Again, reminder, link in with all of our speakers and anybody that you can get in the chat that has dropped their LinkedIn there. We will be sending out the recording for this, and then along with, and look for that email, because in that email there might be some different resources from our panelists that they would like to pass on to you, whether it's upcoming events that they're doing or just some resources that we talked about today. And so keep an eye out for that. Talent Collective has some really good events coming up here. Next Wednesday, we have a workshop with Tracy. She's the head of global talent at Zapier. And so she's going to talk about how Zapier is using their product to automate their recruiting process. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And then we have another panel discussion at the end of August on the 28th. Actually, Krista from Talent Collective is going to be on that panel as well, along with Power to Fly, and it's going to be about AI-led recruiting. So please check that out. I put the Talent Collective LinkedIn in the chat, so check that out, because you can also see if there's any in-person events in any of the cities you live in. So reach out if you have any questions, but thank you all for joining. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.